Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Firetime Network Power Hour. Super excited to be here. Grant, how you doing, man?
I'm doing so good, Tim. It's great to be here again.
I know, yeah, I've been excited about this. I don't know if you feel this way, but for me, the month of December has been a lot. I've been just doing some traveling, and the week has been chaotic leading up to Christmas, and I'd imagine that a lot of people feel that same way too. And it's cool to be able to step out of it to just focus on big things, even if there is a lot going on that everyone's going to jump back into as soon as this is over.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this actually for a week, maybe a little bit longer. I love talking about this type of stuff, the things that are going to help us, because right now, all of us are probably struggling a little bit. And it's hard to think about these things right now, but right now we have an hour to discuss maybe how we solve some of those problems we're running into right now. And it's exciting to be able to do that and kind of gets you away from the other things.
Yeah,
Hey,
totally
Aaron.
agree. So yeah, super excited you guys are here. Aaron, good to see you. Noel, yeah, it's cold outside. Our wood stoves are keeping us warm. So true. This is fireplace season, and unfortunately, I don't have a wood stove in my house because I live in the city. I've got a couple of gas fireplaces, but I got one burning right behind me right now, keeping this place warm. It is fireplace season. This is what we live for. So as we frame this out before we jump into the heart of today, a couple things that I just want to talk about. Number one is that the reason that we do these power hours is to really have an intentional time to grow our community together. The goal is that this isn't just two of us talking, and ultimately as we continue to do these, it's actually not going to be just me and Grant that are doing these, but it's the goal is not for just us up here to do all of the talking. It's for our community to engage together. So as we go through the content today, by all means, feel free to comment in with a question or a concern, or even an area of disagreement, so that we can talk about this. For a while in the Firetime Network, we did happy hours, and they were really cool, but we felt like for where the industry is right now, we really need intentionality. And when we think about even the idea of what is power hour, our belief is that true power is found in pouring yourself out for others. And hopefully that's what this is, where we can have leaders together pouring themselves out and saying, this is what I'm doing, this is where I struggle, and we all get better together. So that's the purpose of why we do this. And man, Grant, today's topic, it's going to be a good
Yeah.
one.
Yes, it is, Tim. I mean,
Let's Yeah, you go for it.
go ahead. I mean, it's a lot today, and we know that. But what's really exciting about today is to kind of lay a foundation. And as we've gotten to know other dealers and hear their problems, it's the foundation of, from start to finish, what is the customer's experience? What are your employees' experience? What are yours as a leader's experience and expectations? And even though we only have 60 minutes, I'm excited. I'm extremely excited to kind of cover this and see what the questions are
Yeah.
as we go through it.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, let's do some heavy lifting before we get started here. So we have been doing giveaways so far every single time, and today is no different. Grant, I love that you are contributing this from Falcon. What today's giveaway
The
is
prickly
a
pear pink, 20
prickly pear
ounce.
pink.
Yeah. Yes. Yeti Rambler. And I think this, like Aaron Watson, this has your name written all over
I
it.
think so.
Yeah, maybe Noel. I don't know. But yeah, very
I think it
popular,
does.
tons of fun.
Yep. I was actually looking on the Yeti website today, and it looks like those are actually out of stock. So you can only get them through the Firetime Network Power Hour right now. And okay, let's talk about, so today's topic that we're going to be discussing is the 10-step execution process. And I'm actually going to let you take it over in a second, Grant, to talk about that. But this is a way a business running a retail job from start to finish in 10 simple steps. And the way that someone is going to win this Yeti Rambler is, as we go through these steps, it's going to be the first person who can share in the Firetime Network one step in the process that they're using. So if your business uses one of these steps, the first person in the Firetime Network to share it with the group, you're going to get that Yeti Rambler. Sound good?
I think it sounds great.
Well, Grant, let's kick it over to you. Why don't you frame the 10-step execution process? We've talked about it before on the podcast, but just give us a little bit of a briefing and kind of how it came about, and just, yeah, let's start there.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be very honest, how it came about is I came into a business that had a fantastic structure to it. And there was a lot of these 10 steps or 7 steps originally that we did. And it really came down to an understanding of why we did them. And it took me a long time to understand the ins and outs of why we did these things. A few years ago, you talked me into starting to speak and present and just share what I know. And not that what we know is right, but we all need perspective. We all need to help each other. And there's no better way to do that than sharing. And I was passionate at that time about installation and the completion of installation. And it really just like sparked that installation starts at the sale, and managing the expectations through each and every step, whether it's your employees, understanding what is expected in every step along the way, or more importantly, the customers. You want them to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it. And the end result is to have 100% perfect installation. So it used to be the 7 steps to a perfect installation. And as we have, kind of ventured out, Tim, and discussed with other retailers and even helped other retailers, we've kind of found what the foundational parts that are missing, or what
Yeah.
foundational parts are missing. And we were able to kind of glue this together from start to finish with a little what you do, little what I do. And it's just extremely exciting to come up with this, because it's not everybody's perfect 10 steps. And a lot of us probably do a lot of these things already. But what it is ingredients to your own meal, your own dinner. And you can pick these pieces of the puzzle and put your own puzzle together to use 2 different sayings. So let's just get started. We're going to go through the 10 steps high level. Tim, if you have any questions, I'm literally just going to go over the titles of each transition, and then we'll go through and kind of do our best to explain each one. And anybody who's listening, who's involved in these processes at an intimate level, if you disagree, if you have a reservation, please ask, because that is what this Power Hour is all about.
Yeah.
Okay, you
Yeah.
guys. So like I just stated, it all starts when the customer comes in the showroom, and managing those expectations successfully. You want to have systems, processes in place to solve that customer's problem, give them a price for what that solution is going to cost, and you need to share what the plan to succession is, or the plan to completion is. So step 1 is customer coming in your showroom. Step 2 is an in-home job walk and quote from that estimator. Step 3 is the sales follow-up. Step 4 is to schedule the installation. Step 5 is to purchase product. Step 6 is receiving and staging or pre-staging. Step 7 is managing expectations through a confirmation call. Step 8 is the action, the installation, or, whatever else it may be, but installation in this case. And step 9 is turn in paperwork. And the final step 10, is simple appreciation, a thank you, and possibly a review from the customer.
Yeah, so good. And just want to acknowledge some comments here. First off, Shelly, awesome that you've been waiting all day for this. Dude, we've been
I
waiting all day
love it.
too. It's so
Heck
great
yeah,
to have you
Shelly.
here. And one thing I'll say as we get into this, Grant, I think that these 10 steps have sometimes more resistance than anything else that we've talked about before. And it's not that any one of them, someone has a major problem with, but it's the idea of asking, like, my business is unique and it's different. You know, are there actually 10 steps that I can follow to do this? And I think that we're going to say that yes, there are. And the steps may look a little bit different for each business, but it doesn't change the
Yeah.
fact that it's a step. Like when we talk about step 1 being in the showroom for any retail fireplace company, like, that is going to be a bedrock part of your foundation. Now, what happens in the showroom, there could be nuance on that depending on your company and the way that your business works. But as we go through these steps, I would just encourage people to keep an open mind.
I couldn't agree more. And really, this is based on a lot of assumptions in that you're set up a certain way. I mean, the businesses that we are talking about and have used this based after are companies that have an inside sales staff that does not do their own estimates. There's a separate person that does the estimates, maybe one or two people. The inside sales staff acts as a liaison through the entire process to make sure we're managing expectations, because truly the agreement is with that salesperson. And so there's a ton of assumptions, and we'll talk about structure along with this, but just know, please ask questions. And sometimes things don't work perfectly because of the way you're set up, but you can utilize 9 of them, or maybe rotate one because you're holding something else accountable in a different way. There's a million ways to skin this cat. But these 10 steps, we really are passionate
Yeah.
about being one of the ways that you can get there quickly.
Agreed. Jerry's had some awesome comments. I mean, this one right here, that often the issue is the fumble between each of the steps, where the information and the
100.
miscommunications that cause the fumble. And Jerry knows this better than anybody. He's an amazing coach that goes to help businesses with this sort of thing. As we talk about these steps, the reason it's important to put them all together is because now we have a process where we can diagnose what went wrong. If we do these steps in isolation and we don't think about how they're connected, it's exactly what Jerry said. It doesn't matter if we have the best estimator in the world who in isolation can go out to a job and determine what needs to be done. If the link in the chain was not correct in the salesperson that set that estimator up, if when the estimator turns in their paperwork to go back to the sales team or the scheduler, if those things aren't connected, we have no way to get better. So my hope is that as people watch this, that they're going to be encouraged that we actually do a lot of these things, but it's the difference between doing all of them 20% of the time and doing all of them 80, 90% of the time. That's what we want to work towards. So let's go ahead and jump in, Grant. Let's talk about step 1 in the showroom.
Yeah. So step 1, you and I both know how important step 1 is, because it's laying the foundation of what the consumer is going to experience. And it's really setting the bar high. When a consumer comes in, and Tim, you are a professional at discussing this, there's really 3 things that have to happen, but we know 2 of them always have to happen. The first thing is, customers coming in, they have a problem. Doesn't matter what they're searching for in your store, you have to find out the problem to make sure that that product is going to solve that problem and is a solution. The second thing is they need to know a ballpark price for the solution to that problem. If not, they will continue to shop. They will continue to have mystery, and they'll think worst case scenario, a high priced item. They're probably thinking $10,000, $12,000 when you're thinking a high priced item is $6,000. So giving them some type of parameter price to their solution is absolutely vital. And the thing that you've really taught me, Tim, is putting the stones in the creek to cross the creek, basically giving your consumers a path. You know what the path to completion is for your business, but they don't. And they think of it as extremely complex. And so when a customer comes in, it's all about managing expectations. And as Jerry put, fumbling the next step, the goal of the sales team needs to be setting up the estimator for success, getting the deposit, the commitment, or whatever, and setting that estimator up for success is absolutely vital. It's a passing of the baton. And if you can't pass it successfully, like Jerry says, it's fumbled.
Dude, I agree. So, we've talked a lot about sales process and the nuance and the detail of customer interaction in the showroom. But for our purposes here today, when your team member on the showroom floor, and Shelly made a comment as a new salesperson, the biggest thing, there's 2 things that we really need to do as a salesperson on the floor. We need to identify the customer's problem and give them a path to solve it. That's it. Now this means a few things. To identify the customer's problem means that we actually have to engage them. We have to ask them questions. As me and you have secret shopped, Grant, a lot of the time we don't get asked any questions. We'll go stand next to a wood insert. Salesperson will assume that's what we want, and we start being talked to about a wood insert. We can't identify a problem unless we engage. Then from there, we don't sell a product. We give the customer a plan for a solution. And there's a difference there. Pick your brand of wood stove. It burns for 8 hours at 60,000 BTUs an hour. Great. That's a product. That's not a solution 2, a problem. And so what we want to do is we ask questions and identify that problem is before the customer leaves the showroom. We need to give them a path to solving it. And
Yep.
it could be as simple as just saying, hey, step 1, we're going to today help you find a wood stove that's going to keep your house warm and your family safe. Step 2, we're going to send someone out to your house to take a look at it. And then step 3, we'll get that installed. But we want the customer to know. And sometimes it can be like, well, duh, like I'm insulting my customer to tell them that. And you're not, because they're not familiar with what we do. Grant, I want to talk about this, and I don't mean to take it over. I want to kick it back to you.
No, setup form.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I printed out
Yeah.
a couple forms here. So my recommendation is that you literally make a customer checklist for your showroom. And this is an example of one that, that I've used before. And there's nothing crazy about this. Like, what kind of project are you working on? Remodel, new construction, fireplace retrofit. How did you hear about us? Our website, a referral. Are you a repeat customer? What style is the project? Traditional, contemporary. This is not rocket science, but one of the big things is that when it comes to sales, a lot of the time we forget what to ask a customer when we're in the heat of the moment, and we get, we jump too quickly to product, and then we get partway down the path, and because we forgot to ask a question, we have to start unselling the customer on what we just talked about. It breeds confusion. So this is something a lot of people have problems with. For new salespeople, this is easier because they just aren't as familiar with our industry. But I would say even for the most experienced salesperson, you should have this. And sometimes people are like, well, it insults my, my professionalism. I've done it all. I don't need a checklist. But, I flew to California last week, and when I jumped on that airplane, like, thank God that the pilot had a checklist that they ran through before they took off. And it doesn't matter that they've been a pilot for 30 years. The fact that they have a checklist that they go through, it actually shows they're a professional. It's an amateur.
Yeah.
It's a foolish amateur that says, oh, I can just do it all in my head.
Well, we see it all the time, and I have the most amazing sales staff. I hope they're watching or eventually see this. I have an outstanding sales staff, but they're expected to manage the expectations to the customer transition of estimate in the same way every single time. And why?
Yeah.
Because they literally have to translate in that experience from in the showroom to the consumer. In our situation, the estimator was not in that sales pitch, wasn't in that solving of solutions. So if they're going to go out there, and we'll talk about this in the second step, but if they're going to go out there and they're going to manage those expectations where you're selling a product based on a certain amount of information that they're out to verify, then you better make sure that you transition everything that was decided, talked about, and said, including price, so that they're literally having an extension of you out there. And I cannot emphasize how important that is.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that brings us, we can move through these steps quickly. And by all means, people that are listening, put in your questions and we'll stop and talk about it. But that takes us to the bridge between step 1 and step 2, which is this right here. It is the job walk setup form.
Yeah.
Right. So if an estimator is going to go out to a house, it is not enough to say, hey, Grant, you're going out to check out a wood stove, because that doesn't tell you what the customer's problem is. It doesn't tell them, why this option is going to be a solution. You don't know if it's been bid yet, if it hasn't been bid yet, if they've gotten any kind of a price on it. You don't know what other options were looked at. And that sets everyone up for a colossal waste of time. Estimators, we lie to ourselves and think that the estimator's job is to go out and check to see if the wood stove will work. And that is not the estimator's job. So we're going to get to that in a second, but the estimator setup form has got some really critical information. And Grant, this is like straight out of your playbook. Can you talk about this?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was, when I came into the business, the retail business, the one of the first things I did was learn the estimator role. And then I was tasked with, refining it and eventually handing it off. And the biggest thing that it came down to was the managing of expectations. Each time I would experience a pain point of not having the price and the customer saying $5,000, you're out of your mind. I was thinking 2,500. Then all of a sudden we made it a standard that we had to have the price on there. But it allows you, in having this setup form, to continue to pile on the information that is needed to set up expectations. So there's things in this setup form that are talking about what is the customer's taste? What type of customer is it? Are they a budget conscious customer? Are they looking for something clean and contemporary? Are they someone who is very analytical and wants to know the BTUs and the efficiencies? That information has to be passed through this form to the estimator just to make sure that he is successful as possible. And to be honest, the consumer expects that happens. The consumer is expecting that estimator does almost understand everything that you and them and the salesperson discussed on the floor.
So here's just getting really practical. So this form, again, no estimator should go out to a job site without this form being completed. If a salesperson says, hey, can you go out and check this wood stove, and they have not filled out the form, the estimator needs to say, no, I can't. So it's got the basics, the appointment date, the appointment time. This bid was scheduled from an in-store experience, or this bid was scheduled from a website inquiry. This bid was scheduled from a phone call. What I love about this, Grant, that you've done is you require the salesperson to put down unit interests. So if you look at this right here, like what was the unit they were interested in? What was the retail price, the sale price? What upgrades were they looking at? What's the price of the upgrades? What's the total price of the job? So many times an estimator goes out and the customer says, well, how much is that going to cost? Oh, I'm not a salesperson, because the estimator is terrified to, step into that role. Give it to them right there. So they can say, you know what? It looks like that option was $45.36. These are all fake numbers that I just put in. And it looks like the blower kit upgrade is $169. The estimator has to have that. And then you've also got a story where like the salesperson has to tell a story about who the customer was, why they came in, and why this is so important to them. I don't want to belabor the point, but this is absolutely vital. It's absolutely vital because it sets up the estimator to be able to do their job, and Grant, let's go to step 2. What is the estimator's job on the job site?
Well, going back real quick before step 2, an estimator's job. The way things are organized on your showroom, the ways things are intentionally purchased and displayed and sold on your showroom gives you the ability to narrow down to 1 or 2 options almost every single time. You understand your customers. There's only a few different types of customers out there, and your products solve their problems. So the way Falco is able to narrow down to 1 to 2 items almost every time is because it's set up from the very beginning. Now, when it doesn't mean it doesn't change, but an estimator's job, and we'll get to this, is to go out there and make sure the product that you're selling them is going to solve the problem. If we put the estimator in a position that they're selling the product out there, they're not going to be efficient. They're not going to be able to do what they need to do and focus on the very critical things that they need to focus on.
Well, and then it just gets kicked back to the person in the showroom, and it's a big game of Ring Around the Rosie, right? In the showroom, we really need to narrow it down to 2 models. I mean, maybe 3, but really it should be narrowed down to 2 models in the showroom, and the estimator is going out to make the call, right? So
yeah,
I'm in the showroom.
It can change from those. It can change from those 1 or 2 because the parameters have been set up, the information is there, but it can change because you get out there and it doesn't fit. You get out there and it's actually not the same information. The information from the consumer was 10 by 10, but it's actually 10 by 40. It's a lot different scenario, and you can change it. But if you don't have that starting point, you're starting and you're selling everything again, and you can't put your estimator through that.
Yeah, I agree. In the showroom, it can be narrowed down to 1 or 2. And what might happen is, because let's say I'm in the showroom and Grant's the estimator. Can you guys role play? Dude, I think we should, we'll role play. I'll be the salesperson. You can be the customer. But the thing that I think about is, if I'm the salesperson in the showroom, we might narrow it down to 2 units, say a medium and large wood stove, or 2 large ones. And I think that one of them is going to be a better fit, but I haven't been out to the house. So when the estimator goes out to the house, they have the authority to make the call, not me as a salesperson. My job is, with the knowledge I have in the showroom, to bring them to the point of what I think the best decision is. The estimator goes out and they make the call. This is the model for that customer. And then it goes back to me. And if I want to sell them something else, the estimator's got to go back out. Like the sales is a game of momentum, and we need to continually move towards the goal at hand. And it's the estimator's job by the time that they leave to make that call on what the unit is. Okay, dude, let's role play this now. Because here's what I want to do. I want to just role play the customer checklist.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Let's
I
do
mean,
let's
we're
let's
stretched for time. I know we're stretched for time, and
I
we are
know.
only on step 1.
Let's go
So,
quick. Let's
okay.
start this out real quick. So let's just imagine, Grant, you walk into the showroom with Andrea, and I talk to you guys. Hey, thanks for coming in. Is this your first time in our showroom? Oh my gosh, that's so great that you're in here. Okay, so we're past the greeting.
Okay.
We're gonna start role playing right now. 3, 2, 1. Well, hey, Grant and Andrea, it's so good that you guys are in here. We really appreciate that. As you can see, we have a lot of different kinds of fireplaces for different situations, and not all of them work in every specific home that a customer may have. Do you mind if
Yeah.
we sit down for a second and I just ask you a couple questions about your project so that way we can make sure to show you options that are going to be good for you?
That sounds great, Tim.
Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, why don't you just have a seat right over here? So, do you mind if I take notes while we talk?
Go for it.
Okay, perfect. This just helps me make sure that I can keep it all straight. What kind of project are you working on? Is this a remodel or is it a new construction type project?
I mean, maybe a remodel. I have a lower level in my home that has a rock fireplace, and I've got this like wood insert in there, and I'm not doing wood, and well, my wife really would like to go gas. That's what we're thinking. We don't even know if it's possible.
Cool. I had the exact same thing where I wanted wood. My wife's like, we live in Beaverton, Oregon. We're not gonna be burning wood here.
Yeah.
What so you mentioned that you want to burn gas. Do you have natural gas where your house is, or would this be
Yeah,
hooked up to a
natural
propane
gas.
tank?
Yep, natural
Okay,
gas. Yeah.
perfect. Now, you mentioned this is down in the basement. Is there like a certain decorative style that you're trying to stick to, like a more traditional or contemporary look?
You know, it's basalt rock actually, and
Okay.
my wife wants to replace it, but I don't think we're at that place yet. We want some type of reliable heat source down there. It's a little bit colder down there, and we're down there often, but I think we'd be down there more often if it was a little bit warmer. So we probably won't replace the basalt rock, even though my wife wants me to. But we just want to look at getting some type of gas
Yeah.
insert in there, and then maybe we will.
Okay. It might be good based on that. So there's some models that are ultra traditional, some that are super contemporary, but there's a lot of them that are just real clean and minimalistic, and that would actually
That's
work
perfect.
right now with basalt. And if you change it out, that'd be really versatile. Okay.
Yeah. I
Um,
know my wife wants robust flame. She wants a big nice flame.
cool. That was my next question. So yeah, what do you want this fireplace to do for you when it's all said and done?
We want something aesthetically pleasing. We want something to heat. I want something that is reliable in a power outage. That's why I had the wood insert. We're giving that up. I would like something, and I think these work when the power goes out, although I'm not exactly sure how.
Yeah, Grant, we'll make sure to get you one that does. So that's not going to be a concern for you. Okay, so time out. Shelly, you put us on the spot and I took the bait. I couldn't help it. I'm glad that that was good. And I hope it was helpful for you guys to see. So like literally, I mean, all I'm doing, I'm filling out this form. You see my notes on it. You know, um, we didn't even get through a third of the questions. So if you think about this, when was the last time you sat down with a customer in that level of detail and asked them about their project? I hope it's all the time because literally that's what should be done with every single customer because I don't know your problem unless I start doing that. So that's why this form is so important. You can watch the replay to see kind of the psychology of how I asked permission. Do you mind if I take notes? I said, I'd like to ask you questions so that I can make sure that I understand your project. Like there's
One
psychology
of
behind that. Yeah, go for it, Grant.
we have to differentiate ourselves as people are shopping the market. One of the things I felt as a customer is that you were different than probably anybody else I've seen, and you were focusing on me from the very beginning. And
Yeah.
that is it's and people that know a lot just want to get in there and just want to start talking and want to share everything and then start narrowing it down. No, that's backwards. We need to narrow it down through a series of questions with intentionality to understand the customer and eventually solve their problem through a series of questions.
Yeah. So sorry, I took the bait on that. Please don't bait me again, people,
Yeah.
because I will take it. Grant.
We got 30 minutes
Okay.
to get through 9 steps.
Well, we'll go through part of the steps execution process. I know there's going to be more questions come up. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the
Yeah.
estimator.
So estimating role was one of the roles that I was in the early part of my journey in Falco's in the last 20 years, and truly one of the most important roles. It's a closing role. It's people have a hard time accepting people into the home, and really you're on the spot. You have to perform in front of the customer in a scenario in which you've never been in, and you have to look like you know what you're doing, and you have to cover all the bases, and you have to sell the product. It's an extremely difficult position. And I
Oh,
remind myself
I think the
often,
estimator is probably the most important position in the company.
I think that, when you break down and we go through this, Tim, I think we probably say that like 6 or 7 times
Every
because
position.
so many things are like so important. But the estimator role is tough. You're out there in the field all alone. People don't see what you do. You have to be empathetic. You have to understand. You have to take information from someone else and feel like you are on it. You want to be prepared. You have to get on the roof. All these different things. So the real important thing is yes, you're out there as an installation expert. But I'm going to go back to this. You're out there to manage expectations that have been set up by your sales team, and you have to manage those expectations. So you need to make sure that you understand that customer's pain point or problem, and you got to understand what the solution we set forth with what product or a couple products, why we pick those products, and then dang it, you have to verify that those things are going to work. And really, then you have to button up everything else. My approach when I was estimating was to have a conversation, to match what my sales team was saying and what they were saying, to understand and see if there was any other information in their story, in their problem, and in the home. But then I would ask for 15 minutes to go through my checklist as an estimator and make sure that I was getting everything on the installation done, the fireplace size, the outlet. Have I talked to the customer about electrical and seeing the outlet, et cetera, et cetera. So managing expectations and buttoning it all up are absolutely important. So the 4 things, just high level, Tim, and then I'll let you kind of go into this, that I think about when it comes to an estimate is verify solution and the price. Take pictures, measurements, and develop a scope of work. We can hammer into scope of work because that is super important.
Yeah.
This thing is something that comes in time. You don't have to do it right away, but it's actually the end all be all for my company is rate jobs on difficulty and attractiveness. And that helps you schedule with the right teams, with the right customers on the right days. And then when you're done with the estimate, I believe it's 100% the estimator's responsibility to finalize that quote and pass the baton back to the sales staff, but also give the quote to the customer. And we can talk about how that works, but I want the person responsible for the installation quote is the estimator, but the person communicating will be the salesperson. And we can go into that. I know we have very little time, but there is method to that madness.
I agree. Well, I'm going to go to another form, right? This is an example of a job walk form. So again, before the estimator finishes their day, they filled this out for all their jobs that day. And I would actually argue this must be filled out before we move on to the next one. But I'll give you an example right here. So like what's on the job walk form? Customer name, address, phone number, who's the salesperson, what's their requested installation time frame, the fuel type, is there an existing unit in place? What's the name of the new unit? What's the size of the surround? What's the color of the decorative front? Job scope details. This is where you talked about writing up a scope of work. So here's an example. We will run gas line to the fireplace, remove an existing set of screens and glass doors, then be installing an XYZ brand fireplace. The gas line will be run from the meter over the fireplace along the side of the house and into the fireplace. Vent pipe will be run from the fireplace up through the chimney and sealed per code. That scope of work is actually going to be read to the customer, and they will literally sign for it on their invoice because the customer needs to know what's happening. You know, if they're spending $5,000, it's not, oh, we're going to put in a gas insert. What's that mean? Oh, I thought electrical was included. Wait a minute. It doesn't come with the remote control. Oh, wait, no, we need a written scope of work for the work that's being done. Are we running gas line? Yes. What's the gas line distance? 10 to 20 feet. Now we get into gas line details. We will be running a new line from the meter along the exterior back wall of the home. The line will run underneath the siding, butting up against the concrete. The line will run roughly 20 feet to the opposite side of a window and then go vertical to the ceiling/joist. We'll punch through the exterior wall, and then my page gets cut off. This is a fictitious scenario, but the point is this is in addition to your pictures. So you're taking pictures, documenting everything, but the estimator, I mean, this is going to take time. This is going to take 20, 25 minutes to put together, but this is everything.
It's the most important part. And if you're quoting labor, if you're quoting an installation, the customer has expectations on what that installation is going to be. If you don't put an expectation out there, they don't know if they're aligned with it, or not. They don't have the opportunity to ask any questions to make sure they're aligned with it. And guess what? When you get out there, you put your installation in a really bad position to have to do what the customer said, not you, because there's
Yeah.
nothing documented. Now, I've been to a lot of companies that do the scope of work, but they don't share it with the customer. The customer has to be accountable to the scope of work so that they know exactly what is expected of them, and that will assure success. And further down the line, when we do the installation, the first thing we do is what again? We review the scope of work with the customer
Yep.
prior to starting anything, make sure we answer any questions, all that
Yeah.
stuff. And guys, Tim did a very detailed scope of work. My scopes of work and our scope of work at Falco's are always done that way, because you have to change it. And if you don't directly say, this is what I plan on doing, you can't change it. And then the change ends up being what you're doing. And that's not how to operate a business.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Shelly asked if salespeople should go out, and she clarified to say just to train or to see the process. And I think the answer is absolutely. Now, laying my cards on the table, in my background, I actually have not, I don't think yet worked for a company that we had a dedicated estimator. We had salespeople do it, and it worked. There was definitely difficulty and complexity with it. We believe that truly the right way to do it is to have an estimator, and that a single estimator can probably support upwards of 4 to 5 salespeople. So we talked about, we got to have an estimator's job walk form. Here's my recommendation. So whenever we go out to work with companies, a lot of the time we'll make these on JotForm. You can get JotForm for free online, but basically it makes a super friendly, like mobile survey essentially to fill out. And your tech can do it on their iPad. It will come up with a nice, clean PDF that you can literally set to automatically email a copy of it to the salesperson, to the installation manager, to whoever is needed to get it. And what I love with that is that the salesperson gets it in real time. So it's so amazing to be a salesperson. All of a sudden you have a new email that your estimator Bob just finished up at Susie's house, and I can literally look at these job notes and I can see that Susie got the final price, but that she's not closed yet. I can give her a call. Hey, Susie, I just know that Bob went out to your house today. I got all of his notes. Man, it looks like this thing is going to be great. I was taking a look at the pictures, and yeah, you're right. With that basalt stone, this clean, trim unit is going to look just incredible, versus the estimator turns in their, paperwork sometime. The salesperson doesn't know about it. The customer gets dragged on and dragged on and dragged on. To me, having a digital form that emails automatically to the salesperson to close that deal is incredible. Jerry's got a comment here. This is really good. The salesperson and the estimator or the combined role must understand the installation process of problems that will occur. Yeah, that's so true. And that's why I think the estimator role is the most important, Jerry, because the estimator is the bridge. They have to have an understanding of how sales works, and they have to be able to install, I would argue, better than your installers, because they're carving it out. They're carving, and they have to communicate it. And that's really hard.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's teachable. I mean, if I'm being fully transparent, I did not install growing up. I played soccer, had things to do. I was in the business, but we were a nursery at that time. So I worked in the nursery, sold trees, did all that stuff, believe it or not. When I got into the business, I was an estimator and I wasn't an installer. And I would say that both can work, but if you're a person that isn't an installer by trade, they have to be heavily invested in learning and understanding and being willing to make mistakes and being willing to fix those mistakes at a permanent level, because an outsider's perspective is not always bad. But any industry knowledge that you can get into the estimator, and a lot of time the estimator is a former salesperson or a former installer to a certain extent, hopefully, but we can't always, it can't always be perfect. So realistically, just having an estimator that is accountable to the project. And if you have systems and processes, checklists, forms, it can get them through it pretty good.
Yeah, and I guess I'll eat my words. They may not need to be able to actually install better than your best installer, but they need to understand the process just as thoroughly, and they got to be a really good communicator if they haven't actually installed.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what Jerry said at the beginning, that there needs to be meetings. This isn't actually part of the 10 steps, but one of the most successful things that I had when I worked for my previous company is we had a regular meeting between installers and salespeople talking about okay, these are the jobs that we're going out to estimate. These are the pictures. It's going to be a problem. What would you do here? Okay, how should I bid this? And same thing, we would report back on install jobs from the previous week, and the installers would throw up pictures and say, what were you thinking here? This didn't work.
Yep.
So we were able to learn from each other, and it was really, really good. So
Yep.
the estimator goes out, they capture the scope of work, and now step 3 is one that I don't think most businesses do, Grant. It goes back to the salesperson. And
yeah,
so,
it's about
yeah, I was going to set it up. So the salesperson, let's say, close the deal. What do they have to do now?
Okay, so the salesperson, I'm sorry. So the estimator has basically passed the baton back to the sales staff and consumer. And so now it's back in the sales staff's hands. And it by doing that, they've or how they did that was CCing them on an email or passing it through the job form. The salesperson's responsibility is to make sure that they understand the installation and what happened at the estimate. Just like it's the estimator, the estimator needs to understand what the salesperson did. When our estimator emails the consumer, they put the scope of work in there so that everybody's on the same page of what we are quoting. And then there's a line item quote that they review together. So the salesperson will do a follow-up. So step 3 is basically the sales follow-up. Now, you might get a deposit at that time or before, but the main part is passing the baton to the customer and to your other team members to the next step as successfully as possible. And how you would do that is you would reply all to that email, informing the customer and the estimator what your plan is to kind of take this on. So the estimator knows that you got it, the customer got it, and you're taking it over, and the customer knows, hey, you say something maybe the next day, say, I got this. I'll let you have a chance to digest this. I plan on following up with you tomorrow morning. When you follow up, you want to ask for a little bit of time. Mary, do you have at least 10 minutes for me to review this? This is really important. I want to make sure that we get this right and that there's no questions by the time we get out there. Are you okay with that, Mary? And she's going to say yes. Or she's going to say that there's another time. And that's what that email, like a reply all email does. It kind of says, no, I'm not available tomorrow morning, in the afternoon works better. Because how often do we call and they don't answer? Mm-hmm. So you review the scope of work and the quote. You want to make sure that they understand price. You want to make sure that they understand the scope of work and options, fronts, all those little things that you are responsible, but may have changed. Well, they may have told our estimator's name is Dwayne or Brandon, that they wanted a brushed stainless front and you had a black front on there. So now there's a brushed stainless front. You need to make sure that you're reviewing that's what they want and that you know that's what they want. So, and then get a signed scope of work and basically a green light. We get majority of our deposits prior to the estimates, how we operate. And it's, I think, how a lot of companies operate. Sometimes you get it afterwards, and that's okay too. But even when you get a deposit before, it's not just about the estimate being done and it going into the next stage. It's about understanding exactly what's happened, what's changed. And a lot of times there's things still unresolved. Like, have they made a decision on what they're doing with electrical? Have they made a decision if they're going to finish that hearth or not, or if they're going to do that before or afterwards? Have they made a decision on the front? Do you have a hearth pad that they still haven't made a decision on or aren't, fully aware of if they're going to be on a corner or a wall? There's so many things that when the estimator's out there that still might be left undone. It's really important to manage those unfinished things and complete it. And then Tim, you and I and my company have come up with the terminology called green light. So when the project is green light, it's then passing the baton, assuming all these things are done, and an email will be sent on to scheduling and then on to purchasing from there.
Let me recap that real quick. So the estimator passes it back to the salesperson. They send an email to the customer. Hey, Mrs. Smith, here's your final bid. It was so great to meet you. I've got Grant copied on this email. He's going to take great care of you from here. Grant replies all, hey, thanks a ton. Appreciate you passing that on. Mrs. Smith, I'd love to call you tomorrow morning. Just take 10 minutes of your time. Just make sure that you're really clear on understanding the scope of work for this job, right? The baton has been clearly passed. Now, the customer buys it. When the customer buys, they place their deposit, they sign on the dotted line. The salesperson's job is to make sure it's greenlit. And to be greenlit, we need to make sure A, deposit's been taken. B, we have a signed scope of work. C, we have a job walk form with pictures from the estimator. And D, we've reviewed the order with the client, meaning the
Yep.
salesperson has called the client on the phone, read every single thing on the order. You're going to be getting this and this and this and this and this. I want to read you the scope of work from our estimator, just to ask if you have any questions. We literally read that thing. Hey, we're going to be installing this XYZ insert into your
Yep.
fireplace, running gas line from here to here. You want to do that because now what we're doing is we can send it off the scheduler. So we send it to the scheduler now saying, hey, this job is ready to be scheduled and it's greenlit. I've taken the deposit, reviewed the order with the client. I've got a signed scope of work and we have a job walk form with pictures. Now the baton has been passed. It's gone from the salesperson to the scheduler. And Grant, I think this is the most controversial step in the process, what we're about to say.
We have heard that, and I understand it. Okay, so my nature and belief is to be intentional, proactive in everything that you're doing. And one of the things when it comes to installations is my mentality is you don't waste a day. You don't waste a day ever. So I have 4 installation teams running. We should have at least 4 units installed every single day. And so working backwards from that, whether it's 2 installs or 3 installs, whatever your expectation, you should have an install every day. And I'm going to tell you, I hear a lot, oh, we moved it from this Thursday to next Thursday. If you didn't fill it, you lost a day. You can never, ever get that back.
Yeah, you spoke pretty harshly with me today, using some strong words that you don't lose a day.
It's a mentality, and it has to be bled through and start with you, and then certain things make sense differently. And I believe that I don't lose a day, and the only way I'm going to get better is with that mentality. Now, do I push my teams pretty hard sometimes? I believe sometimes I have to be aware and and take a step back. With that said, scheduling the installation is a way to manage that and be as effective as you possibly can. If you're a company who orders and waits for the product to arrive and then schedules, I don't see how that's best for your consumer. I'm sorry, I don't, because they could have it a week after they get it if you're willing to manage that on a daily basis. So I believe scheduling first, but understanding ETAs, understanding if it's in stock, having an awareness. So as I'm on this, I'm just going to try to take you through what we do at Falco's. So when I get a green light, our sales team is actually verifying stock, verifying what is in stock at that time and what needs to be ordered. They submit a form through email to our purchaser and they order the necessary pieces. That goes on a master PO and it gets submitted that day or the next day, contingent on when we get things. We know really quickly because our schedule is out so far, whether it's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or whatnot. We know that we have 6 weeks or 8 weeks from that time. If the product's in stock, we'll try to schedule it sooner, but it's something to work towards. As we get closer, what is absolutely vital to make sure that this works is the way you pre-stage and then stage the inventory. Because as you get closer, you might not have everything. And who is managing that? It's a combination of people. It's a salesperson being the communication with the customer. It's the purchaser saying, hey, we're in now getting 2 weeks away from this and we haven't got an ETA. What's the ETA? And having communication till that last week. And then knowing if you're not going to get it, you have to postpone it a week or 2 because the product's going to be delayed. But managing it all the way to that last thing, what we have is 160 installs on the schedule and 50 of them complete, which gives me an opportunity to move any of them up at any time if something gets postponed because we don't lose a day. What I will tell you is it's not easy. It is not easy. And our coordinators are a team of coordinators. And every single day we are shuffling it and we communicate and manage expectations with the customer. But the end result is customers get the product within a few weeks of it arriving, which should be the expectation because they're already waiting. And you're installing the most amount of installs that you can each and every day because we only have 130 install days in our installation season, and we have to maximize every single one of them.
I agree. And again, the hesitancy that people have is they say, I can't schedule it until it comes in because I have no idea when it's going to come in. The truth is, you probably have an idea when it's going to come in. If it's truly a situation where you have no idea, book the install for 3 months. I don't care. Just book it for April. But what you're doing is now you have a target to aim at. So now, and again, this goes back to what Jerry talked about early on about meetings, is that there should be a weekly meeting between your scheduler, between probably your sales team and your purchaser, that is just saying, hey, we've got this coming up. We don't have an ETA yet. We're 2 weeks out. We're going to make the call. We're going to push this job back. Or they might say, you know what? We're going to order it from this distributor instead, even though the pricing's not quite good. We're going to do it because we know it's in stock. We don't want to lose the day. It gives us a target to aim at. The alternative is if you just say, no, I can't do that. I'm not going to be moving the schedule around. I already have too much stuff going on. What happens is you order the product and everybody forgets about it. And all of a sudden, whenever it is, 2 weeks later, a month later, 2 months later, you get a PO in from that manufacturer. I'm sorry, your scheduler is not seeing that PO and going, oh, these are the units for Sally Smith. No, your scheduler has forgotten about it because they're busy with everything else. The product shows up. Wait, who's this for? Oh, okay, it's for this customer. Wait, they're on the books. Let's get their paperwork. And then we're calling them. And then we're starting the scheduling process, but we're already out 6 weeks in the customer schedule. It's so much rework. Instead, schedule it on the front end with your best educated guess. Don't be, like maybe everything you just automatically start scheduling 8 weeks out, or maybe it's 12 weeks out with a certain vendor. But again, having a target to aim at will make your company more efficient. And it will actually, I believe, having a target to aim at will make for less work than forgetting about it and scrambling and having an upset customer.
If you don't know ETAs of the products you sell, schedule installations before purchasing and you will know ETAs of product. There's answers there. There's inside people that will support and give it to you. You need to know that, and having the target to aim at is absolutely necessary. But you can have if you manage your inventory, and if you're managing it differently, that's okay, as long as all those installs are a focus every week by your coordinators, salespeople, purchasers to get here and to get executed. That's great. This is the easiest way. Put it on the schedule and manage it down. Danny's asked the question, how far ahead are you staging? We generally have always staged 2 weeks out. We have a 2 week out yellow zone, red zone type of mentality that we could talk about here in a few steps. There's a thing called pick sheets. So every day we have our warehouse assistant run through the line of picks, label what's not there every single day. They move everything down and they email it out where the sales, purchaser, and coordinators all see in the last couple of weeks what is happening. We know, okay, this one's not here, but it has an ETA already and it's supposed to be here. Or this piece is 7 days out and we haven't got an ETA. All hands on deck. That's every day that communication is happening. And just like Jerry said, on a weekly basis, as sales team, coordinator, we're managing the schedule, looking at ETAs, looking at the pick sheets, and always maximizing the 20 installs a week as how I look at it, or however many you're expected to get. But we can talk about that down the line with staging.
Yeah. So we talked about we schedule the product at the time of sale, then we purchase it. And again, there needs to be a very tight-knit relationship between scheduling, purchasing, and warehouse. They're all interconnected. They should be talking multiple times a day, coordinating the schedule, when products coming in, because your purchaser is a bulldog. Your purchaser is working with your vendors, with your distributors, checking ETAs and everything. I'm going to move past purchasing though, because I got a short on time taking the rabbit hole on the sales practice. I couldn't resist. So we purchased the product, but then we go to staging. And there's an article that we wrote for the Firetime magazine a couple of months ago that is called Lost Profit Starts in the Warehouse. Actually, this is a not so shameless plug. We just launched a podcast for the Firetime magazine. If you go to like Apple Podcasts or Spotify and type in the Firetime magazine, there's a podcast where we have audio articles from the magazine. And that article, Lost Profit Starts in the Warehouse, is an audio article. But I'll explain this real quick. Normally, we recommend staging 2 weeks out, and you have your warehouse marked in a red zone and yellow zone. When a job is within 2 weeks of an install, it moves into the yellow zone, where it literally gets staged 2 weeks ahead of time. And you have a box. You have 10 boxes. The first 5 are for your Monday through Friday in your red zone. The second 5 are your Monday through Friday in the yellow zone. And what happens is you stage your job 2 weeks out at the far end of the yellow zone. The next day, you move everything forward 1, and now you stage the
Yep.
next job that's 10 days out. Then it moves up 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So the reason we recommend that is when product is in the yellow zone, it's okay if not everything is in, but every day it's being checked. Every day you pull it forward, you're looking at what do I not have? And the differentiator is that when it moves from yellow zone to red zone, under normal circumstances, we would say if when you're approaching that 1 week out, if every single piece, vent pipe, fireplace, gas line accessories, if every single piece is not there, the entire job gets rescheduled, because it's better to reschedule it and move it back and pull something else forward than to lose the day. Now, in crazy COVID times where there's no supply, maybe you got to schedule 4 weeks out. Maybe you roll the dice on the yellow zone, red zone, but under normal circumstances, that's what we would say.
Yeah, and I just want to add one more thing to that. So when we do the pick sheets, and my team is moving each product, I think it seems like it's overkill to move every product down, but they get their eyes on it every single day. And I believe repetitiveness is going to eliminate mistakes. And so they go through that every single day. And one of the things I'll tell all of you that every warehouse assistant warehouse has tried, they will go and find the product in the warehouse and mark it pulled, but it's not pulled. It's not off the shelves, and it's not on the unit, and it's not wrapped up, and there's no excuse. You grab the product off the shelves, you wrap it up, and you make sure that that order is either complete, or if it's incomplete, all the product is on there. If it's out in the warehouse, it can be taken at any time, and that product is for that consumer. If a salesperson comes in on a Saturday and grabs that blower off the shelf and you don't have it anymore, that's how we run into problems. So please pull the product, put it on the unit, and move it down.
So good. So we're at our time limit and we're just not going to make it through the 10 steps, but that's okay because this has been really, really good. This gets us part of the way there. And again, don't feel like you have to do every single one of these right now, but maybe there's one thing you can do. Maybe start thinking about that yellow zone, red zone for the warehouse. Maybe it's that you start using a customer checklist and you literally sit down with the customer, just like me and Grant role played.
Yeah.
The point is to start somewhere, right?
Yep. Oh, absolutely. I mean, any of them.
Yeah. So, okay, giveaway time. So while we were talking, Grant, we had somebody post inside the Fire Time Network, Ryan Blake. She said, we set expectations starting with laying out step by step how we will provide them an estimate all the way through the acceptance of the proposal. Winner, chicken dinner, Ryan Blake.
Love it,
well-deserving
Ryan.
and awesome job. We're going to get that to you.
Ryan, we'll get it to you tomorrow, and then we need a picture of you and your team in your showroom or wherever, holding it up so we can put it in the magazine next month.
Yeah. Well, and we appreciate you. He says he has to take off, and thank you so much for tuning in. As we round out here, these 10 steps are a big deal. And again, this is a not so shameless plug that we're actually hosting a Fire Time workshop that's going to be an in-person 3-day workshop in the month of May. We're doing one on the West Coast from May 1st to 3rd. That's going to be hosted by AES up in Seattle, Washington. And the next week, we're going out to Lee, Massachusetts, and Ray Murray is going to be hosting it from May 8th to 10th. If you want to learn the 10-step execution process, we will literally take 3 days together with you. We're limiting the amount of dealers that are going to be at each one, and we are going to dive deep on this. We will help you create all the forms that we've talked about. We'll help you put together a sales process, a follow-up process. And what's going to happen is you're going to leave that workshop with an understanding of what to execute on. And Grant, I mean, dude, this is going to be awesome.
It's going to be so much fun. And just even talking about it today, even though we got maybe, 6, 7 steps in, every time we review it, every time we communicate about it, I realize how valuable it is, Tim. And honestly, these 10 steps, and it just kills me that we weren't able to get through all of it, are just absolutely vital. But we need some more intimate time. And that workshop is an intensive 3 days, all immersed in the 10-step execution process, and then how to manage that process with a heartbeat report. And I couldn't be more excited for May.
Yeah, me too, man. So, one thing here, so it's up on the screen, is that if anybody wants to sign up, they can go to itsfiretime.com/workshop. And we have a promo going through the end of this month. $500 off of a single attendee, $1,000 off of 2 attendees. There's no further discount because literally you're only allowed 2 attendees. Like, this thing is going to be a small event, only 2 people max from each company, and it's going to be absolutely incredible. So that's going to go through the end of the year. Now, if you're listening and you can't afford it, or the travel or whatever is not going to work out, we do have an online version. It's $1,500, and what you're going to get is we're actually going to be going to film each of these, breaking it down into a video course, and for $1,500 you can get that. So you can sign up online as well. Final thing, I mean, we're super, super thankful for everybody that's on here. It means a ton.
Yeah.
Grant, our next Power Hour, let's talk about what that's going to be, because this is going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about today, and we weren't able to finish it. Maybe we can round out a little bit of it the next time. But the 10-step execution is what you do. It's what your team does. It's how you run your business. But the heartbeat report, and talking about it, is how you manage that on a weekly basis. And it's really cool. I'm really excited to talk about this heartbeat report because you guys all have the information. You just got to put it on one report, constructively go through it weekly, and win or learn. So understand what you're doing well, and look at what you're not doing and get better at it.
Yeah, it's so good. We talk about, so how do I take control of my business and run it the right way? Well, it's the 10-step execution process. By dedicating yourself to that and building your business around it, that will help you do things right. But how do I manage it? How do I keep all this stuff straight? It's by building a heartbeat report based on all the information you're learning in the execution process and looking at it week in and week out. So next month, after the holiday break, we're going to get together and talk about building it. So we're going to just say, these are some of the metrics to be thinking about. This is how you can go and get those metrics. And it can seem like a burden where it's like, how can I do this? The beauty is you don't have to. You involve your team with it, and it becomes a report you do together. So, man, for everybody here, thank you just so much for being here. It means the world. And, I think that Jerry's words here to close us are terrific. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Good old Zig Ziglar.
Love it.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you, and have a Merry Christmas and a great New Year.
Yeah.
All right. Peace. We'll see you later.